My mom and my sister called the police because my 5-year-old daughter pushed her cousin over a doll. When I arrived, Chloe was sitting in front of 2 police officers, crying softly, completely convinced they were going to take her away. I didn't yell. I just did what they never expected me to do. I stopped obeying. 5 days later, they stopped receiving my money. I flew back to Charlotte earlier than planned for a simple reason. A morning meeting with a client in Atlanta got canceled. I managed to get a flight for that same night and landed late. I slept a few hours at my house, and in the morning, I went to pick up Chloe at my mom's house. I thought about buying some bakery donuts on the way, as if coming back early could turn into a nice surprise. Chloe had stayed with Eleanor, my mom, for just one night. In theory, it was a safe arrangement. My stomach was in knots, but that feeling was already normal whenever my mother was involved. I put the key in the door slower than usual. Maybe a part of me was already prepared to walk into something uncomfortable. I just didn't expect that. There were 2 city police officers in the living room. One was writing in a small notepad. The other, younger one, was kneeling in front of my daughter. My mom had let them in as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Chloe was on the edge of the couch, curled up, with her arms pressed tight against her body. She was staring at the floor as if waiting for a punishment. Eleanor was standing to the side, with her arms crossed, looking as flawless as always, acting as if she had already handed down a sentence. My sister, Natalie, had Madison clinging to her leg. The little girl still had teary eyes and a graham cracker in her hand. Every now and then, she looked at Chloe out of the corner of her eye, looking more confused than guilty. For a split second, I thought the officers had gotten the wrong house. Then one of them looked up. "Good morning. Are you Mrs. Melissa Parker? Chloe's mother?" I nodded. "Yes. What is going on here?" The officer shifted slightly, placing himself between Chloe and me. He wasn't aggressive. It felt more like he was making sure nobody overreacted. "Everything is under control, ma'am." We responded to a call. We were told there was an altercation between 2 minors, that one pushed the other, and that you were out of town. "That's why we are speaking with your mother and your sister." I looked straight at Eleanor. "You called the cops on a 5-year-old girl." Natalie stepped forward, looking offended. She hit Madison, she knocked her down, and she was crying a lot. Madison, at that very moment, was already going in for another bite of her cracker. Chloe still hadn't lifted her face, and her little shoulders were shaking. I walked over, sat next to her, and hugged her. "She didn't hit her," my mom corrected coldly. "She pushed her." We tried to talk to her, but she got disrespectful. We figured that if the police talked to her for just a minute, she would understand that you do not do that. The other officer, who had been quiet up until then, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, 911 is not a tool to settle fights between toddlers." We responded because a dispatch call came through, but this does not warrant a police report. Chloe finally looked at me and started to cry. It wasn't a loud cry. It was worse. It was a quiet, broken cry, as if she had been holding it in until she saw me. I hugged her tighter. She wrapped her little arms around my neck and clung to me as if I were the only solid thing in that room. I rubbed her back and looked at the officer. "So, what happens now?" "Nothing at all, ma'am. There are no injuries. There are no charges to press. We are just going to document that we responded to the location, and that is it. The minor is scared, but she is with you now." He then turned to my mom. "And please, do not ever call again for something like this. There are real emergencies out there." "Are you not going to file a report?" Natalie asked defensively. "No, ma'am, and I am going to be very clear with you. Do not use emergency services to scare children." He then looked at Chloe and softened his voice. "Nobody is going to take you away. You are safe with your mom now." Chloe nodded against my shoulder. The officers left shortly after. The door closed, and the house fell silent. Well, almost. Madison started saying she wanted to go to the park. My mom looked at me as if she were waiting for me to apologize to her. "You two have completely lost your minds," I said, "calling the police on a 5-year-old. Over a toy." "It wasn't over a toy," Eleanor replied. "It was about her aggression. You spoil her way too much. She thinks she can do whatever she wants. Girls like that end up being a problem in school later on. What kind of adult scares a little girl with the police?" "I didn't scare her," my mom said, crossing her arms even tighter. "I just told her that if she didn't calm down, there would be consequences. You told her the police could take her away. Do you know how terrified she is of strangers?" Eleanor shrugged. Maybe this way she learns. I felt a physical blow to my chest. Not for me, but for Chloe, who was still shaking. Fine, I said. Now you are going to learn something too. You will never be left alone with her again. Not you, and not Natalie. We are done. Melissa, don't exaggerate, Natalie chimed in. We just wanted to help. You have no idea what you just did. Chloe wasn't fighting over a doll. She was defending her personal space. And you just taught her that if she stands up for herself, she gets treated like a criminal. My mom opened her mouth, but I held up my hand. No, I have had enough. We are leaving. That night at my house, I washed Chloe's hair, put her in her pajamas, and read her a story about dragons. It was our usual routine, except I kept stumbling over the words because my mind was racing. I pointed to a page and said, "Do you know who my favorite character in this book is? The princess. Because she doesn't sit around waiting for someone to rescue her." Chloe was quiet. Then she said very softly, "Mommy?" "Yes, sweetie. Grandma said that if I told you, you were going to be mad at me, that you were going to be ashamed of me." I closed the book. "Chloe, look at me." She barely looked up. "First, pushing is not okay. Even if someone tries to take your toy away, we are going to use our words." Her eyes darted back to the floor. "But that doesn't make you a bad girl. And I am not mad at you. I could never, ever be ashamed of being your mom." She looked at me with that intense seriousness kids get when they want to know if an adult is telling the truth or just saying something nice. "Really, truly, I am always on your side. If you make a mistake, you and I will talk about it. Without police, without guilt, and without making you feel like a bad person. Deal?" She nodded and pressed her face into my shoulder. I stayed with her in the dark, listening to her breathing until she fell asleep. While holding her, I thought about something that hurt me more than I wanted to admit. How could I have ever believed that those people were safe for my daughter? I grew up in that family. A normal childhood. If by normal you mean a spotless house, meals served exactly on time, and a total lack of warmth. My mom was always flawless. Perfect makeup, ironed clothes, a cold tone of voice. She never yelled. According to her, yelling was for uneducated people. Her favorite phrase was, "Do not make a scene. Behave with dignity." If I was crying, she would never ask what was wrong. She would say, "And what are you planning to do to fix it?" Natalie was the perfect daughter. Good grades, hair bows perfectly tied, clean uniform, polite smile. The only thing she never had was a mind of her own. She learned to mimic my mom long before she learned how to make a decision. I was the difficult one. Translation. I had opinions and I asked too many questions. I cried when something hurt. In my house, that meant you were weak. My dad was there, but not entirely. He was kind, mild-mannered, and quiet. I think he loved us in his own way, but he lived completely in my mom's shadow. Sometimes he would wink at me when she became unbearable. That was his way of supporting me, and he never actually stepped in. If I locked myself in my room to cry, he would bring me hot cocoa and comfort me later, but he never defended me in the moment. I moved out at 19. I went to night classes, worked during the day, and rented a tiny apartment with a view of a brick wall. I wanted to go into design, so I did. Now I am 32, and I work as a UX/UI web designer for a mid-sized tech company. Most of the time I work from home, with occasional travel for client meetings. I am not rich, but I make a comfortable living. Chloe came along when I was 27. Her dad, Andrew, seemed stable at first. He had an easy smile and always said he wanted a family. Then Chloe was born, and he started staying silent when she cried in the middle of the night. Then came the excuses. The late hours at work, the increasingly brief text messages. A year later, he left. The divorce was quiet. Now he pays child support and mails a birthday card whenever he remembers. Sometimes he draws a crooked dinosaur in the corner. Chloe barely even remembers him. With that life, not perfect but stable, I let my mom back in. It all started when my dad died. It happened suddenly. An aneurysm. One day he just did not come home from work. Chloe was 3 at the time. At the funeral, my mom was like a statue. She didn't shed a tear. She just said, "I suppose everything falls on my shoulders now." We had barely spoken for years. A dry phone call on birthdays, a text on Christmas, nothing more. But after the funeral, she started reaching out. She asked about Chloe. One day she showed up at my house with a grocery store rotisserie chicken. It wasn't a home-cooked meal, but it felt like a peace offering. And I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that grief had changed her, that losing my dad made her realize something, that maybe she actually wanted to build a real relationship, because she was still my mother. I started bringing Chloe over to see her. Then I would leave her there for an hour or two when I had errands, meetings, or chores. At first, everything seemed fine. Natalie lived near my mom with Madison, who was 4. They were almost always there. The girls played together, and I desperately wanted to convince myself that everything was okay. Natalie worked part-time as an assistant teacher at a private preschool. She barely made anything and took on odd jobs in the afternoons whenever she could find someone to watch Madison. Madison's dad had moved to another state and wasn't paying child support. The court case was at a standstill. Nobody really knew where he worked or how to garnish his wages. So, Natalie leaned heavily on my mom, and my mom leaned on me. At first, it was small things. Can you help me with the electric bill? The water heater broke. Natalie is really tight on cash this month. Then it became a habit. Your sister is alone with a little girl, Melissa. Do you understand? Yes, I did. I was also alone with a little girl, and I still paid my bills. I even started covering a chunk of Natalie's monthly car payment, $400 a month. Without that, it would have been repossessed. The agreement was never spoken out loud, but it was crystal clear. I had a solid income. Therefore, it was my duty because we were family. For a while, I convinced myself that maybe it was worth it. Maybe Chloe was going to get something I never had. A present grandmother, a cousin her own age, Sunday dinners, silly pictures on Christmas, a family that didn't feel like a chore. I wanted that for her. I wanted her to feel like she belonged. But that night, watching my daughter sleep after crying because of them, I finally understood. None of it was real. They had never changed. They were just acting nice as long as it benefited them. My mom didn't love Chloe for who she was. She would never say it out loud, but you could see it in her eyes. That constant, subtle disapproval. Chloe was not a silent doll sitting on a couch. She was loud, curious, intense, alive. And my mom could not stand kids like that. She wanted obedient, quiet girls that were easy to show off. Just like Natalie. Just like Madison. Always wearing a perfect hair bow, sitting on grandma's lap. The new ideal granddaughter. Natalie knew the game. She played it well. She knew who my mom's favorite was, and she used it to her advantage. Madison was the good girl. Chloe was the difficult one. So, when Madison pushed someone, it was just a misunderstanding. But if Chloe didn't want to share a doll, it was a major red flag. According to my mom's manual, a well-behaved girl shares, obeys, and never talks back. I was not going to pretend this was normal anymore. I was not going to hand my daughter back over to that cold, judgmental world. They had gotten used to me fixing everything. The one who helped, the one who paid, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace in the family. And if something went wrong, I was the one to blame. 2. We were done. For the first time, I didn't choose the fake piece of my family. I chose my daughter. The first few days were quiet, almost too quiet. No calls, no text messages, no passive-aggressive photos of Madison with captions like, "How beautiful it would be for cousins to grow up together." Chloe started sleeping better. So did I. For a moment, I thought I could actually live without that heavy guilt sitting on my chest all day. Until day 5 arrived. You have successfully canceled the recurring $400 payment to Natalie's auto loan. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. Here we go. Natalie was the first. Hey, Melissa, did you forget about the car? The payment didn't go through today. Maybe it was an app glitch. No, Natalie, it wasn't a glitch. I simply wasn't going to pay it anymore. I left the message on read. For the first time, I didn't rush to explain myself. 3 hours later, my mom texted, "Melissa, I am worried. Are you okay?" The utility money didn't hit my account either. We have another issue with the water heater. A guy already came to look at it and left a bill, but I don't have the funds to pay him yet. Is there an issue with your bank card? The utilities. Right. I never actually paid the bills directly. I sent her $300 a month, supposedly for electricity, water, gas, and urgent repairs, but there was always a new story. The meter was reading too high, the gas prices went up, the plumber, the dampness, the water heater. Again, over time, I stopped asking questions. It was easier to just send the money than to play detective and end up feeling like a terrible daughter. I didn't reply to her that day either. Then I logged in and canceled the basic health insurance plan I had been paying for her for months. Let her figure it out. Let her look for options. Let her stop using me as an ATM and an emotional punching bag. The next day, they decided to bring out the heavy artillery. Natalie showed up at my house with Madison. I was making macaroni and cheese for Chloe. Madison stared at the bowl, maybe out of hunger, maybe out of exhaustion. I don't know. What I do know is that Natalie knew exactly how to weaponize that moment. "We were in the neighborhood," she said without meeting my eyes. I figured we could talk. Chloe clung to my side. "There is nothing to talk about," I replied, slicing up a cucumber. "Melissa, please. You know I don't make the kind of money you do. I have a daughter and I am just trying to survive. And you have Mom. And your daughter is her absolute favorite. I don't think you're lacking any support." Natalie swallowed hard. Madison started to whimper. Maybe she was tired, or maybe she just felt the tension in the room. "So, you are really just not going to help us anymore?" Natalie asked. "Just like that?" "Just like that. We are family too. Chloe is family. And look at how you treated her." Natalie looked down. "It was just a mistake." "No, a mistake is forgetting a backpack. You people called the cops to terrorize a little girl. We didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did. And nobody even apologized to her. She left without saying goodbye." Hours later, my mom called. "Is this your final decision?" "Yes. You are going to leave us in a very difficult situation. I am not leaving you. I just stopped funding your lives. This is revenge over a misunderstanding." "It was not a misunderstanding. It was a police cruiser in your living room over a toddler fight. You are exaggerating. And you are minimizing. That doesn't work on me anymore." There was silence on the line. Then she said, "Do not be surprised if there are consequences." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because for the first time in my life, I heard her threat and didn't feel the urge to obey. "What consequences, Mom? Not inviting me to the family Christmas dinner? The one where I end up bringing half the food anyway?" She hung up. That night, Natalie sent one last message. "Sorry for coming to your house. We are in a really tough spot right now. I thought you still wanted Madison to have an aunt and Chloe to have a cousin, but I guess you don't care about that anymore." I did care. I cared about my daughter having safe people around her. Kind people. People who didn't dial 911 because a toddler took a toy from the wrong bin. I didn't answer. Chloe asked if she could draw a rainbow on the wall. "In your bedroom?" "Yes." I told her yes, only with colored pencils. She ran off to get her art supplies. I stood in the kitchen with a half-eaten bowl of mac and cheese, several canceled bank transfers, and a strange feeling in my chest. Relief. For 5 years, I broke my back trying to help people who treated my daughter like a burden. Never again. They were going to have problems, and for the first time, I wasn't going to run to fix them. About a week after the money stopped, part 2 began. I went to pick Chloe up from her private preschool at 4:00 p.m., like I always did after extended day. I had fruit snacks in my jacket pocket, her favorites. But this time, the smiles from the other moms were completely gone. There were side eyes. Whispers. One of the queen bees of the mom group pretended she didn't see me, which was funny, because usually she would trap me in conversations about sugar-free lunchboxes and gluten-free bread. I walked into the cubby area, and several moms who had been chatting went dead silent. Karen, clutching her massive Stanley tumbler, and Ashley, the one with the perfect braids, stared at me as if I had shown up to kidnap someone else's kid. "Hi, Melissa," one of them finally said, forcing a tight smile. "Is everything okay with you guys?" Translation. "We were just gossiping about you and now we don't know where to look." "Everything is fine, thanks," I said, helping Chloe zip up her jacket. She stood quietly by my side. "It's just that a weird message went around the group chat," the mom continued, from a number with no profile picture. Something about an incident with the police. It said Chloe has behavioral issues. I took a slow breath. That specific breath you take when your first instinct is to scream. Why are you gossiping about a 5-year-old child? But I chose a different route. Calm. How interesting. And who sent it? I don't know. It was an unknown number. It had a screenshot of what looked like a case number. Like a case number. I repeated. "And you all believed it?" They looked at each other. Their silence answered the question better than any words could. At that moment, Miss Sarah, the teacher, stepped out of the classroom. She had the look of someone who absolutely did not want to get involved in family drama, but knew it was her job to protect the kids. Melissa, can I speak with you for a second? We stepped aside. Chloe stayed by her cubby, nervously twisting her sleeve. There are no issues with Chloe whatsoever, Miss Sarah said right away. She is a great classmate. She participates. She plays. She follows directions. If anyone is snatching toys around here, it isn't her. Then what is going on? Two mothers approached me today. One asked if her son was safe, being in the same classroom as Chloe. I tried to smile, but couldn't. Did they tell you where they got that from? One of them showed me a screenshot. It was a cropped police case number, framed as if it were a severe incident report. The message claimed she had a history of aggressive behavior and that the police had to intervene. I closed my eyes for a second. Do you want to know where it actually came from? Only if you want to tell me, Miss Sarah replied. I looked her dead in the eye. Chloe had a fight with her 4-year-old cousin. Over a toy. My mom and my sister decided to teach her a lesson and called the cops. The cruiser showed up. The officers saw there was nothing going on, told them to stop wasting emergency resources, and left. Now, because I cut them off financially, it seems someone decided to spin a creative story for the preschool moms. Miss Sarah didn't say anything at first. She just gave a slow nod. I went back to get Chloe. The moms were still hovering nearby, waiting for the next episode. I sighed. In those mom groups, rumors spread faster than a kindergarten stomach bug. I couldn't undo what they had already read, but I could kill the story before it grew legs. Just in case you were worried, I said in a clear, calm voice. It was a fight between toddlers. My mother called the police to scare my child. There is no police case. There are no charges, and Chloe poses zero danger to anyone. Thank you for your concern. They all instantly looked terribly uncomfortable. Oh, right. Wow. Well, so glad everything is fine. I gave them just enough of a smile to end the conversation and grabbed Chloe's hand. She squeezed my fingers tightly as we walked to the car. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. It is okay, my love. Sometimes adults talk without knowing the facts. That night, Andrew texted me. I got a weird text about the police and Chloe. What is going on? The message hadn't just gone to the preschool mom group. They had sent it to him, too. Of course. Andrew practically never showed up, but all it took was one anonymous screenshot for him to suddenly feel entitled to an opinion. I texted him back. My mom called the cops because Chloe pushed her cousin. It sounds insane because it is. They showed up, saw 2 little girls in princess dresses, explained that a toddler fight is not a 911 emergency, and left. Chloe is perfectly fine. He called me immediately. Did that seriously happen? Yes, Melissa. I don't know if I should step in. Step in how? Maybe Chloe would be better off staying with me for a while. I stayed quiet for 2 seconds. Then I almost laughed. With you? I don't mean it in a bad way. I am just worried. Andrew, you have been doing a disappearing act for years. You pay child support. Yes. Sometimes you mail a gift. But you don't even know her favorite color. You don't know what she's scared of. You don't know what bedtime story she asks for every night. I pay my fair share. Paying child support doesn't mean you know who she is. That is not fair. You want to be involved? Then, actually show up. But before you have a knee-jerk reaction to an anonymous text, ask yourself who sent it and why. I am just worried. If you are genuinely worried, show up more than once a year. Chloe needs actions, not a phone call just because someone spooked you. He hung up. The next day, Natalie was waiting for me outside the preschool, standing right by the fence, holding Madison's hand, looking like she was there to mediate a PTA conflict. Are you really going to keep this up, Melissa? Hi, Natalie. Good afternoon. Don't play dumb. This is so immature. You stop answering calls, you cut off the money, and now everyone is talking. Everyone is talking because somebody texted a screenshot about my daughter. I didn't send anything. I didn't say you did. Her face shifted slightly. You are just being vindictive. I am protecting my child. Something the two of you completely forgot how to do. Natalie pursed her lips. Chloe pushed Madison, and you know Mom thought calling the police was best. That is exactly the problem, Natalie. You still do whatever Mom says, even if it traumatizes a little girl. She stayed quiet. I took a breath. You are a mother, too. Imagine Madison sitting on a couch, shaking, staring at 2 cops, thinking they are going to take her away to jail. Imagine walking into a room and finding her like that. What would you do? She didn't answer. She just gripped Madison's hand tighter and walked away. Chloe saw part of the interaction. When I buckled her into her car seat, she asked me in a tiny voice, "Are they not coming over anymore?" I knelt down next to her. "No, sweetheart, they aren't coming over. And if they ever try to get close to you, I will protect you, I promise." A few days later, I showed up to the preschool a little early and asked to speak with the director. We went into her office. I closed the door and told her everything, without sugarcoating it. The police cruiser, the threat. My mother genuinely believing that traumatizing a child is a form of discipline, my sister using her kid as a human shield, the anonymous text in the mom group, the way Chloe clung to my neck like I was her only lifeline. The director listened to me without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "I am so sorry your family is going through this. Let's get it in writing right now. From today forward, only individuals explicitly authorized by you will be allowed to pick up Chloe or approach her on school property. Thank you. I need it explicitly noted that my mother and my sister do not have permission. They are not authorized to pick her up, to speak to her on campus, or to hand her anything without my direct consent. Understood. I will inform the front desk staff and her teachers immediately. If anyone asks questions, we will simply state that it is a private family security protocol." I walked out of that office feeling like I had finally scrubbed off a layer of grime that had been stuck to my life for years. Everything wasn't magically fixed, but it didn't feel so toxic anymore. The next day, I got legal advice. I went to the police station to file an incident report and document the harassment. I submitted the 911 dispatch record, the text messages, the anonymous screenshot, the timeline of events, and the preschool safety protocol. It wasn't easy like buying something online. It was cold and uncomfortable, filling out forms, writing full legal names, printing out screenshots, explaining over and over again to a stranger why a grandmother and an aunt were a threat to a 5-year-old. End quote. I also asked about protective orders, just in case they tried to cross the line again. Eleanor and Natalie got the formal notice that a paper trail had been established and that the school was fully briefed. I knew they got it because that Thursday, for the first time in a very long time, there were no phone calls, no text messages, no unannounced visits to my front door dragging a toddler along while looking like a martyr. Just silence. That afternoon, Chloe and I went out for ice cream. She picked vanilla. I got salted caramel. Back home, Chloe went back to working on her bedroom wall mural. "Mommy, can I draw a dragon too?" "Yes, but he has to be a good guy. He is going to protect the rainbow," she said, running to grab her green-colored pencil. I watched her from the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug of tea. For the first time in years, I wasn't terrified of a knock at the door, coming to collect an emotional debt. They could be mad. They could write paragraphs of angry texts. They could tell the entire extended family what an ungrateful daughter I was. I didn't care about playing the good daughter anymore. I just had to be a good mom. A month later, Natalie missed another car payment and sent my mom a frantic text. "If my car gets repossessed, I won't be able to get to work." My mom forwarded the screenshot to me. I didn't reply. Months went by. After several missed payments and calls from the bank, Natalie's car was repossessed. She had to start taking the bus, walking long distances, and begging a neighbor for favors to watch Madison. My mom kept sending texts complaining about her medical bills, how high the utilities were, and how unfair the economy was. She said she couldn't manage everything alone, that the cost of living was too high, and that a real daughter doesn't just abandon her mother like this. I didn't answer. I was no longer the family emergency fund. I was no longer the one who understood. I was no longer the one who fixed everything. It was up to them now. Meanwhile, Chloe learned the alphabet. She let me braid her hair. She stuck glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling, and finally started to believe that her home was a safe place. We made pancakes for dinner, watched cartoons, and laughed at silly things. One day, she told me that the dragon on her wall didn't need to show his teeth anymore because the rainbow was safe. That is when I knew I made the right choice. Maybe it took me too long. Maybe I should have seen the red flags sooner, but I finally saw them. For years, I confused family with debt. That night, I realized Chloe shouldn't have to pay the price for boundaries I was too scared to set. My daughter needed a home where no one made her feel evil just for standing up for herself, and I needed to stop asking for permission to protect her. Thank you for staying and listening to my story. I really want to know what you think. Did I do the right thing, or did I wait too long to step up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, hit subscribe. There are a lot more stories like this one.